On January 10, 2026, the silence of the Syrian desert was shattered by the distant roar of engines and the sudden flash of explosions on the horizon. In a coordinated show of force, the U.S. military, alongside its international allies, launched Operation Hawkeye Strike, a mission that would mark a turning point in the ongoing fight against ISIS in Syria. This was not just a single airstrike, but a decisive, large-scale response targeting ISIS remnants and infrastructure across multiple regions of Syria, aiming to disrupt their ability to regroup and launch further attacks. The operation sent a clear and unmistakable message to adversaries everywhere. Attacks on American personnel would be met with overwhelming and immediate force, leaving no doubt about U.S. resolve. Far from a minor skirmish, this was a meticulously planned campaign involving the Army, Navy, Air Force, and a coalition of international partners, all working in close coordination to ensure maximum impact. Targets were selected after weeks of gathering and analyzing intelligence, with the goal of crippling ISIS's command structure, logistics hubs, and training camps hidden deep within the desert. The strikes underscored the U.S. commitment to preventing ISIS's resurgence, protecting its forces on the ground, and maintaining stability in a volatile region. Despite the collapse of ISIS's so-called caliphate, the group has proven resilient, adapting to new realities by using guerrilla tactics, blending into the harsh landscape, and exploiting the vast, unforgiving Syrian desert to evade detection. The timing of Operation Hawkeye Strike, just weeks after a deadly attack on American personnel, was no coincidence. It was a deliberate and powerful demonstration of resolve, intended to reassure allies, honor the fallen, and warn adversaries that the U.S. would not back down. The United States made it clear to the world: the mission to defeat ISIS and protect its people continues with undiminished vigor, determination, and unity. Operation Hawkeye Strike was not only a necessary and forceful response to a persistent threat, but also a reminder that the fight against extremism is far from over, and the U.S. remains steadfast in its commitment to security and peace. Operation Hawkeye Strike was set in motion by a devastating event that shook the U.S. military community just before Christmas 2025. The world watched as tensions in the Middle East, simmering for months, suddenly erupted into violence. On December 13, a lone ISIS gunman launched a surprise attack in the ancient city of Palmyra, Syria. In a matter of minutes, 2 U.S. soldiers and an American interpreter lost their lives, caught off guard in a place that had once seemed relatively secure. These Americans were not there to fight on the front lines, but to advise and assist local Syrian forces in their struggle against extremism. Their mission was to provide training, intelligence, and support, helping to stabilize a region still reeling from years of conflict. The attack was a brutal reminder of the ever-present dangers U.S. personnel face, even in advisory roles. It underscored how quickly a routine mission can turn deadly in such a volatile environment. For ISIS, this was a calculated move, a way to demonstrate that, despite territorial losses, they remained a potent and unpredictable threat, capable of striking at American interests. It was the first deadly assault on U.S. personnel since the fall of Bashar al-Assad in 2024, shattering hopes that the region was finally moving toward peace and stability. The attack sent shockwaves through both the military and diplomatic communities. The U.S. response was swift and resolute. Top officials addressed the nation, vowing to bring those responsible to justice and to protect American lives abroad. President Trump attended the dignified transfer of the fallen at Dover Air Force Base, a somber ceremony that underscored the gravity of the loss and the nation's collective grief. The tragedy personalized the stakes of America's ongoing involvement in Syria, bringing home the real cost of distant conflicts to families and communities across the country. In the aftermath, the military mobilized rapidly, preparing for a forceful response. The attack galvanized both troops and commanders, setting the stage for a new phase of operations. The U.S. was determined not only to avenge the fallen, but to send a clear message: attacks on American personnel would not go unanswered, and future threats would be met with unwavering resolve. Palmyra is more than a city. It's a symbol of Syria's rich history and strategic importance. Once a vital trade hub, its ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, blending Greco-Roman and Persian influences. Its central location makes it a key military crossroads, controlling routes between Damascus, Deir ez-Zor, and the Iraqi border. This strategic value has made Palmyra a focal point in Syria's conflicts. ISIS infamously seized the city in 2015, destroying ancient monuments in acts of propaganda and cultural erasure. Even after ISIS was ousted, Palmyra remained vulnerable to attacks from desert-based militants. The December 2025 attack on U.S. personnel highlighted this ongoing instability. By striking in Palmyra, ISIS maximized the propaganda impact, reminding the world of its enduring threat. Operation Hawkeye Strike was a coordinated series of military actions, not a single event. On January 10, 2026, coalition forces struck over 70 ISIS targets across Syria, marking a major escalation. The operation showcased U.S. air power, F-15E Strike Eagles, A-10 Warthogs, Apache helicopters, and HIMARS rocket systems. More than 90 precision-guided bombs hit command posts, weapons caches, and training camps. The U.S. was not alone. Jordan's Air Force joined the initial December strikes, highlighting regional cooperation. These actions demonstrated the coalition's advanced capabilities and commitment to defeating ISIS. The strikes were designed to dismantle ISIS's infrastructure and disrupt its operations. Operation Hawkeye Strike was a clear signal. The fight against ISIS is a shared, ongoing effort. The coalition's unity was crucial in delivering a powerful blow to the terrorist group. Operation Hawkeye Strike was an unambiguous act of retaliation for the Palmyra attack. The operation was meticulously planned, with every detail scrutinized to ensure a swift and decisive response. U.S. military leaders coordinated across multiple branches, drawing on intelligence and surveillance to identify high-value ISIS targets. The airstrikes were launched with precision, sending a clear signal that American lives would not be taken without consequence. U.S. officials made it clear these strikes were a direct response to the killing of American personnel. The administration's message was firm and unified, leaving no room for ambiguity about the intent behind the operation. The operation was both punitive and strategic, aiming to impose a heavy cost on ISIS and deter future attacks. By targeting key infrastructure and leadership, the U.S. sought to disrupt ISIS's operational capabilities and send a warning to any group considering similar actions. The message to ISIS and other hostile groups was simple: attacking Americans carries severe consequences. U.S. officials emphasized that any threat to American lives would be met with overwhelming force, reinforcing a long-standing policy of deterrence. ISIS's attack was a calculated move to project strength and relevance. The U.S. response aimed to shatter that narrative. By striking back forcefully, the U.S. intended to undermine ISIS's propaganda and demonstrate that such provocations would only lead to devastating setbacks for the group. By inflicting massive damage, the U.S. demonstrated ISIS's vulnerability. The aftermath of the strikes left no doubt about the reach and effectiveness of American military power, sending shockwaves through enemy ranks. Pentagon and White House statements emphasized the operation as a justified, proportional response, not a new war. Officials were careful to frame the strikes as a necessary measure to protect American lives and interests, rather than an escalation of conflict in the region. This careful messaging reassured allies and the American public of the operation's purpose. By communicating openly, the U.S. maintained international support and domestic confidence, making it clear that the mission was limited and focused. The connection between the attack and the response was deliberate and central to U.S. strategy. Every step, from intelligence gathering to execution, was designed to reinforce the principle that American forces will not be targeted with impunity. Operation Hawkeye Strike reinforced the principle that U.S. forces will always be defended, and that any attack on Americans will be met with swift, decisive action, no matter where it occurs. Operation Hawkeye Strike is part of the broader campaign known as Operation Inherent Resolve. Since 2014, this coalition has united over 80 countries to defeat ISIS in Iraq and Syria. The mission evolved from direct combat to advising and supporting local forces after ISIS's territorial defeat in 2019. U.S. troops in Syria now focus on training, intelligence, and support, not occupation. The American interpreter killed in Palmyra was vital to this partnership mission. The attack was an assault on the very foundation of the coalition's strategy. Hawkeye Strike reaffirmed the coalition's commitment to its goals and partners. The operation demonstrated that the U.S. and its allies would not be deterred by ISIS attacks. Hawkeye Strike is a new chapter in the ongoing struggle against extremism. To understand the 2026 strikes, We must recall ISIS's rise and fall. Emerging from al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIS exploited the Syrian civil war, seizing vast territory in 2014. At its peak, ISIS ruled millions, spreading terror through brutal violence and propaganda. The group's caliphate inspired thousands of foreign fighters and attacks worldwide. The US-led coalition responded with relentless airstrikes and support for local ground forces. After years of fierce battles, key cities like Mosul and Raqqa were liberated. By March 2019, ISIS lost its last territory in Baghouz, Syria. The territorial defeat was a major victory, but officials warned the ideology and network persisted. ISIS's fall marked the end of its state, but not the end of its threat. The fight against ISIS continues beyond the battlefield. The defeat of ISIS's caliphate in 2019 didn't end the group. ISIS reverted to insurgency, hiding in Syria's vast Badia desert and launching guerrilla attacks. The desert's harsh terrain provides cover for hit-and-run operations against Syrian forces, the SDF, and civilians. Instability and detention camps like Al-Hol fuel ISIS's persistence and recruitment. The group finances itself through extortion and crime, sustaining its operations. The Palmyra attack showed ISIS's ability to strike high-value targets, including Americans. The threat remains real. Constant pressure is needed to prevent ISIS's resurgence. The mission to defeat ISIS is ongoing and demands vigilance. Operation Hawkeye Strike was justified by the need to protect American lives and deter future attacks. The U.S. made clear any aggression against its personnel would trigger a severe response. Beyond self-defense, the strikes aimed to degrade ISIS's ability to plan and export terror globally. Supporting local partners like the SDF is essential. A weak response could embolden ISIS and demoralize allies. The operation reassured partners of America's commitment to regional stability. The fight against ISIS is a generational struggle, requiring persistent effort. The January 2026 strikes are part of a long-term strategy to prevent ISIS's return. The U.S. and its allies remain vigilant, determined to keep ISIS contained. Operation Hawkeye Strike avenged the fallen, disrupted ISIS, and reaffirmed international resolve. The mission: ensure ISIS can never again threaten the world.